We're live. We're recording. We're talking about stuff. Recently, out of desperation, I started doing something I promised myself I would never do. I started posting on LinkedIn. I know. Trust me. I know. Historically, I've always considered LinkedIn to be one of the lamest places to hang out online, with startup bros posting made-up metrics for clout and failed influencers trying to start a second life as your cybersecurity bestie. While LinkedIn has its own flavor of cringe, these same types of problems exist on every major social platform. As James O'Sullivan wrote in a recent article titled "The Last Days of Social Media," there is more to watch, read, click, and react to than ever before. An endless buffet of stimulation. But novelty has become indistinguishable from noise. Or more concisely, it's all just vapid, empty shit produced for engagement's sake. So why do I think LinkedIn, of all places, could be different? We all think of LinkedIn as the professional platform, totally buttoned up and boring. But what if the same qualities that make it feel like talking to the worst person at a networking event could actually be flipped? What if we could transform LinkedIn from the corniest place online into the most wholesome? If you spend any time on LinkedIn, I know this sounds crazy, so let me explain how I got here. Let's fucking do this. Hi, I'm MK, welcome to my world. Everyone has their favorite social platforms. Some like Instagram, others like TikTok, your parents love Facebook, but for me, Twitter was always my go-to place online. I was mostly a lurker, but it was always a great place to discover great conversations around art, culture, politics, or really anything else you were interested in. But ever since Elon started intentionally destroying Twitter, I felt like my online self has been without a home. I'm not alone in this. More than 20% of Twitter's users have left since Elon took over in 2022, which means over 60 million people are feeling lost like me. Like most of them, I've tried all the alternatives. Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, Substack Notes, but none of those could fill that Twitter-shaped hole in my heart. So one day, full of despair, desperation, and reluctance, I decided I would try LinkedIn. Dark times. Previously, it was a platform I never really thought much about. I think when I logged on the first time, my profile photo hadn't been updated in like 10 years. But as I started exploring, thinking about what I wanted my profile to look like and the types of interactions I wanted to have, I actually saw a lot of untapped potential. It made me remember this startup called Polywork that I'd been excited about a few years ago. Their whole thesis was that a platform based on careers was actually the best place to form a well-rounded representation of ourselves online. In the end, we are what we do every day. And the idea behind Polywork was to connect what we do for work with our interests and our hobbies to create a space where we could be wholly ourselves. Now, a lot of people bought the pitch, and they attracted hundreds of thousands of users and ended up raising close to $50 million. But unfortunately, the product didn't deliver on that initial vision. People quickly started leaving the platform, and they later fizzled out and died. But ever since then, this concept of a place online that integrates who you are with what you do has stuck with me. But unlike other major social platforms, I think LinkedIn has a real motivation to become this whole person platform that Twitter never was and Polywork couldn't deliver. I know it feels like everyone has a LinkedIn profile, but only a small subset of people actually use it. In the broader social media landscape, their user base is relatively small. The primary driver of LinkedIn's business is their career side, where job seekers create their online resumes and apply to jobs, and recruiters pay to manage applications and reach out to people they want to hire. This side brings in hundreds of millions of users per month and the majority of their revenue. But the social side is much smaller. Of the millions and millions of people looking for jobs, only a small percentage are actually scrolling, posting, and commenting in the feed. Compare this to Instagram's 3 billion monthly users or TikTok's 1.6 billion, and LinkedIn looks like an underdog. This becomes even more true when you look at time spent in the app. LinkedIn users average less than an hour per month on the platform, compared to 15 hours a month on Instagram or 30 hours a month on TikTok. I'm not saying those other numbers are healthy, but what I am saying is that unlike these other platforms that are already crushing it, LinkedIn has a real incentive to improve their social experience. With Twitter's collapse and AI images flooding everywhere, we're also at a unique moment in time when people are really looking for change from social media. This means LinkedIn is sitting on a gold mine. They have hundreds of millions of people who are already there looking for new opportunities, and they would welcome a more substantive experience. And without making any big changes, LinkedIn already has some unique ingredients that can make this more satisfying experience possible. The first thing unique to LinkedIn is that you post as yourself. Your real name, face, and reputation are tied to your profile. Sure, you may also post your face on Instagram, but you probably also have some goofy username that creates distance from your real self. Not to mention the fact that this online persona is competing with celebrities and meme pages for attention, further obscuring incentives. Having each LinkedIn profile attached to a real person posting with their real name removes a lot of the negative incentives you'll find elsewhere. People are less likely to be as mean, unhinged, or manipulative when they can't hide behind a persona or an anonymous identity. All this said, authentic identity alone can't force you to behave authentically, but it pushes people closer to their actual selves rather than the performances you'll see on other platforms. The accountability of transparent profiles ties into another quality unique to LinkedIn: the social norms of it being a professional platform. There's an implicit understanding that your current boss or a future collaborator could see anything you say. So any hate speech, harassment, or dirty jokes that would land you in trouble with an HR department are less likely to find their way here. This lowers the temperature overall and makes LinkedIn feel noticeably calmer than other platforms. Don't get me wrong, there's still a ton of noise, but with this more civil baseline, people act a little more like real humans, especially compared to the trolls of Reddit or Twitter. But this combination of real identity and social norms that I've described mostly just makes LinkedIn feel less toxic than other platforms. So the question still is, what qualities does it have that can make it uniquely better? The answer lies in the incentives that drive people to use LinkedIn. Whether you're trying to grow your own business or make connections to pivot your career, the unifying motivation is aspiration. People go to LinkedIn to build a better life for themselves. It's ultimately a place for dreamers, like me. This is in stark contrast to the incentives that drive you to other platforms. TikTok is all about entertainment, Instagram is driven by vanity, and Twitter at this point feels like masochism. But behind every post on LinkedIn, there's some dream attached. If we can just channel this aspirational energy alongside the identity and norms that are already nudging people to be more human, then I really believe LinkedIn could be the most wholesome place on the internet. A place for aspiration that doesn't require you to perform, so you can be ambitious and human at the same time. But we're not there yet. The question is, if LinkedIn has all this potential, why do I still feel so gross when I log in? What's stopping it from becoming this utopia for internet dreamers that I'm envisioning? It turns out that professionalism I mentioned is a double-edged sword. Yes, it makes the environment feel more tame, but it also makes it feel more constrained. Because at the end of the day, every post is expected to be about business, not your actual life.
Because if there's one personality trait you should bang on about constantly is business acumen. It's really interesting.
So you don't post about interests, you post about insights. And you don't post half-baked ideas, but rather airtight solutions. There's this confident posturing that colors the majority of posts. And when it's not that, it's a performance of vulnerability designed as a show of strength. The whole experience feels like someone answering that classic interview question about your greatest weakness with a response of perfectionism. I don't think most people want to behave this way on LinkedIn, they just feel obligated to. Once those norms become ingrained in the platform's culture, algorithms only serve to amplify and reinforce them. So the thing people are really missing is permission. LinkedIn doesn't currently acknowledge that our personal lives and our professional lives are inextricably linked. The jobs we pursue are connected to what we read, what we watch, our values, and the broader culture we participate in. The founder of Arena, who I really look up to, wrote an article recently called Personal Business that perfectly sums this up. Talking about how he's been able to run his small business, a Pinterest alternative for creatives, for over 14 years despite all the headwinds, he says, "The strength is in being yourself, being human, being accessible, being able to talk one-on-one to the people who patronize your business and making something that you want to see in the world but don't currently. Your strength is in choosing to work on something because it's genuinely fun and interesting, and you know you could be interested in it forever." In other words, the business is an extension of himself. It's personal. But currently, we're only allowed to post a very narrow slice of ourselves on LinkedIn, the very place where our personal business is supposed to live. For example, I'm interested in technology and I'm interested in music, but I'd feel weird posting a Spotify link on LinkedIn. The irony is, that'd be a much better signal for attracting like-minded people with similar career aspirations, rather than posting about how good I am at making videos. People half-heartedly try to bridge this gap between their work and their interests by creating things like cultural case studies that they then spin into vague takeaways for how brands should behave. But we could learn just as much, and probably much more, if those takeaways were geared towards us as individuals rather than faceless corporations. Because at the end of the day, as cliche as it sounds, business is about people. If we had a more holistic way to represent ourselves online, then we'd understand each other better. And that would not only help us grow as people, but it'd help us create, market, and sell things that solve real human needs. The bottom line is that being real can be good for the soul and good for business. I have plenty of ideas for how LinkedIn could evolve their product to support a more well-rounded experience. There's no shortage of work to be done there. But there's also something simpler we can do on our own. Instead of waiting for LinkedIn to give us permission with new features that support honest interactions, what if we just gave that permission to ourselves? As someone coming from the arts and culture space where everyone is obsessed with looking cool, I've been shocked to find how many people from that world are migrating over to LinkedIn. But with this new group, like many others, I can see the hesitation. More refugees from Twitter, Instagram, and elsewhere who are looking for something better, but still get hung up on that same question that stops so many of us. Is this okay to post on LinkedIn? So I want to offer an answer to everyone out there wondering that same thing. Yes, it's okay. just post it. If we could just get around those internal barriers and that persistent fear of cringe, here's what it could look like. Recommend something you read, watched, or listened to. Not because of a business lesson it taught you, but because it genuinely moved you. Post about a side project you're working on, whether it's learning an instrument, woodworking, or anything else. Not because you're trying to start a side hustle or sell some business insights, but just to show another side of yourself that others might connect with. Share something you're genuinely curious about. A topic that's new to you, a trend you've been noticing, or a question you've been sitting with. Ask if anyone has good starting points for learning more or wants to explore it together. The LinkedIn police will not come knocking on your door, but someone interesting might show up in your inbox. If anything, this is at least a public promise to myself. I will not filter every LinkedIn post through the lens of business. I'll talk about what I want to do with my life, what I'm reading, what I'm excited about, and what worries me. And hopefully, if you're a hesitant poster like me, this will give you the nudge you need to get involved. I've created a LinkedIn group called Personal Business as an easy entry point. It's a space where people who want a more wholesome experience can share what they're working toward and what they're curious about, without all the business bragging. I'll drop a link in the comments. I realize that changing a platform as big as LinkedIn feels like a long shot, but if we want more from social media, we have to ask for it. And you don't actually have to change the whole platform to make this worthwhile. Just by posting more freely myself, I've had multiple old friends and new connections reach out and say, hey, I care about that stuff too. And that's all I'm really asking for, because we all just want a better place to connect online. A place where you can talk about whatever you're interested in and find people that care about the same things. A place for sharing and learning and evolving, maybe even living up to some of those utopian promises of the early internet that have all but faded away. I think LinkedIn could become that place, and that's why I'm here posting this essay. Not as some business insights or thought leadership piece, but just as me wondering out loud if there's a better way to be online. If that resonates with you, then I'll see you there.
Let's fucking do this.